Welcome back to Legacy Larder. I'm Andy, and today I am very excited to be sharing with you a recipe that's very old, very tasty, and it's a piece of history. We're going to make Swedish meatballs, and this recipe came over from Sweden with Swedish immigrants. It's pretty much where the meatball came from, so maybe not, but it's still going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And these I have made once before, and they are off the charts amazing, so I hope you can make them. Thank you for joining me. Let's get started. All right, in these meatballs we have got a whole bunch of really tasty stuff we're going to mix together. It may be a little different from other meatball recipes you've tried before because the spices are a lot different. This recipe uses warmer spices, I believe they're referred to. But first, let's get ourselves started with our ingredients. First off, we have 3 pounds of 85% lean ground beef. So we're going to pop that in. I weighed that out earlier. I suppose you don't have to, but try to get as close to 3 pounds as you can. Then we're adding to that 2 pounds of ground pork. This is just plain, there's no seasoning or anything in it. And that is going to make our meatballs nice and juicy. The two of those will be nice and juicy together. Then we have 8 teaspoons of salt. So we'll get that in there. 8 teaspoons of salt. We have 2 cups of milk. I'm using whole milk for this. I suppose you could use whatever you wanted, but we're making meatballs, so why not live a little? Whole milk has all the flavor, not just 2% of it, so my vote is whole milk. Use what you like, but these probably aren't diet meatballs, so use your judgment. Okay, now we have a little bit of pepper. We've got 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. You know, a lot of folks say use fresh ground pepper. I've heard that for years, and it wasn't until recently where I picked up a pepper grinder, just a regular old pepper grinder, and started getting the peppercorns. It really makes a big difference. The flavor of fresh ground pepper is a lot different than than the regular pepper out of the can. So if you can and you want to try it out, I recommend it. Even if you try those little disposable grinder ones from the store, that works too. But give it a shot sometime. You might be surprised. All right, so after the pepper, then we have a half teaspoon of ginger. So put that in. And then we have a teaspoon of nutmeg. Pick up fresh spices if you can. Use, that makes a big difference too. A story, I was at my mom's house a few years ago, well, I guess quite a few years ago now, and we were cleaning out her spice cupboard, and we found these spices that were in these older cans and jars and stuff, and my brother and I we thought, well, geez, let's try these things out and see if they're still any good, and most of them tasted like sawdust. So there is some, there is truth to the story that you should replace your spices every so often. A lot of recommendations are every 6 months or a year. I don't know about that, but test them once in a while. Take a sniff or take a taste and make sure that you still are getting that spice that you're expecting. And our last spice we're going to add in is a teaspoon of ground allspice. And so those are our nice warm spices. Pepper, ginger, nutmeg, allspice. Okay, now we're adding in 8 teaspoons of grated onion. And I just used a cheese grater to grate these up. I suppose if you wanted to mince them, that might even work a little bit better. But it's Legacy Larder. I'm following the recipe because this is how we find out if these recipes are any good or not. This one I know is good, spoiler alert, but I'm still going to follow it close. Okay, we've got our onion. Next we need 8 eggs slightly beaten. So I've got these separated out 4 at a time. Just give them a little poke, a little whip. They don't have to be the most beaten eggs you ever did see, but a bit of a whip. There are 4. And here are 4 more. Good enough. Okay. Now, the last ingredient we have is 2 cups of dried breadcrumbs. 2 cups of dried breadcrumbs. So these are the panko style. A lot of times I've made my own breadcrumbs. If I've got older bread that's sitting around, just bake it in the oven for a while, chop it up into little pieces, you have breadcrumbs. So 2 cups of dried breadcrumbs. Now, the fun part. We mix all this up and I'll show you the consistency of the meatballs. So let's get cracking on that. You'll notice this is a very wet meatball recipe, and this wetness, this moisture is going to hang with our meatballs all the way to the end. These are some of the juiciest meatballs you'll probably ever have. They're really fantastic. Okay, I think that is pretty good. Everything is well kneaded. Now we're gonna cook these, portion them out and give them a little bit of a browning before we bake them to finish. So we've got our meatballs all mixed up, the beef, the pork, all those nice warm winter spices. Now we're going to portion them out, give them a bit of a brown in a separate pan. You can use cast iron, electric skillet if you have one of these, any kind of pan that you can brown things in, really. So we'll do that to seal in the juices and give them a nice color, and then we'll finish them off with baking for a bit. Now, of course, this probably isn't how Swedish immigrants did this with electric stuff, but it's modern times now, so we can use these sorts of things. All right, let's get started with the browning and get them ready for the bake. All right, now let's get these going. We're going to set our temperature up to about 350 degrees. If you're using a stovetop pan or solution, then I would say try to get it somewhere around there, depending on the size of your burner and how hot your stove gets. Medium, low, medium, something like that. Enough where you can get a nice brown, but not burn the heck out of these things. So we're going to start getting some portioned up while this is heating, and dry hand, wet hand. I'm going to try to keep them that way. All right, I can feel our pan getting hot already. These little guys are kind of handy. I use them for cookies, for meatballs, for all sorts of things where you want to have a little bit of repeated success. You can hear the sizzle starting. Okay, first round. Now, as they start browning, just kind of rub them in the corners a little bit. Try to keep that shape as best you can. I didn't put anything for oil in the bottom of this pan just because there's quite a bit of pork in these, and surprisingly, as they cook, and you'll see, they don't get all leaky and greasy. They this doesn't cook down like bacon or something else, or a really fatty cut of meat would. They stay, all that juice tends to stay in the inside, which is pretty amazing when you get to the end product. And And remember that we're not trying to cook these all the way through. We're just getting a nice brown on the outside. So it seals in the flavor, gives it some color and caramelization, and makes everybody's mouth water when they walk by the Smorgasbord table. There are some TV chefs who can make perfectly round meatballs. I am not that chef. But I tell you what, these are going to be tasty. You won't even care about the shape when we're done here. Already the smell is just amazing. You can get a little bit of the spices coming in. Of course, the beef and the pork. You can smell that coming in. It's very mild though. These are not punchy in the lips meatballs. They're simple, they're tasty, they're just right. You just want to eat them and eat them. They're like meat trapezoids more than meatballs maybe. Okay, some of these are getting close. Okay, I'm going to start migrating these over into the bigger cooking pan, and I'll probably just buzz through the rest of this process because I've got quite a bit of meatball stock to get through here. So, enjoy. I want to buzz back in here for a second. So these aren't browning like dark brown all over the place. Just a bit of a nice color. It's not going to be like a steak or a hamburger because the mix of the meat and the spices and the milk and everything else, this isn't going to look the same way as a dark hamburger or a steak where it's going to get blacker and blacker. It's going to be kind of a brown. You're going to get a little bit darker brown. At 350, 325, 350, you can control the browning a little bit better. But you don't want these things to get real black. Just a nice color. This would probably make an absolutely breathtaking meatloaf. I just thought of that. But with meatloaf, it's a little harder to hide how much you've eaten because people see you take a slice and then they see you take another slice. But the nice thing about meatballs in a smorg situation is you can cruise on by the table, put 2 or 3 on your plate, it's being all dainty and stuff, and then, a couple minutes later, make a path around the perimeter of the room, come back a little bit later, maybe grab another 2 or 3 meatballs. Before you know it, you might have, 10 or 20 of these babies down, but nobody's the wiser. You just look like you're having a good time at the party. And I guarantee you will not be the only one coming back for numerous second, third, 12th helpings of these meatballs. They are that good. All right, we are nearing the end of pan 2. Just about. There we go. Ready for pan 3. Anybody know any good meatball songs? So we're on our third pan of these, and take a notice at the bottom of the pan, it's dry. And there's a little bit of juice here and there, but you saw how wet that meatball, I want to call it, I keep wanting to call it batter because that's what it reminds me of. It's so juicy, so liquidy. That meatball batter, you saw how wet that was, and that moisture isn't coming out here. There's not a lot of steam boiling off. There's not a lot of grease left in the pan. All of that moisture is staying with the meatball, and this searing the outside is just helping helping the meatballs keep even more of that moisture and all that flavor. If you're wondering what I'm doing with these, I'm putting them off after they're nicely browned. I'm setting them off to the side in my baking apparatus, my electric baker. If you don't have one of those, no big deal. Put them in the oven, cover them with foil. The original recipe says to put them in a Dutch oven. This would take a mighty large Dutch oven. And I don't have one of those. I don't actually know anybody that does, nor have I seen one in the store. But if you had a deep cake dish, something that was big, like a I don't know, 12 by 14, something significant, then you could heap these into that nice big deep pan, cover it with foil, and bake them that way. But the finishing is going to require some baking, but however you do it, they should be covered to keep the juice and the steam with the meatballs. I don't know, maybe you're Dutch. Maybe you've got a Dutch oven. Keep it in the windmill. I wish you guys could smell this. It just smells so amazing. It's not overpowering. It's just mild, and the mix of these spices, there's something about it that, I don't know. It just seems like the way all the world is right when you can smell these spices together in meatball form. It's really pretty amazing. Maybe it's, I wonder how much of our taste sensitivities and likes and dislikes are tracked back through the generations that came together to bring us here today. Am I drawn to these sorts of spice and flavor combinations because the majority of my heritage is from that part of the world? I don't know. Although, maybe not, because I haven't tasted a whole lot that I haven't liked. So it can't all be genetics. I should give that as the daily PSA. Taste the world, cats and kittens. Get out there and try out some different foods, try out some different flavors. Look for recipes on the internet, or dig through your old cookbooks. Ask your parents or relatives if they have any favorite old cookbooks. this is a dying art, and we're missing out on culinary travels that we can take right in our own kitchens. Try out some new stuff. You never know. You might absolutely hate it, but if you do, then you'll know for sure. If you haven't tried it, then you're just kind of guessing. It's like deciding if you like a movie or not before you've watched it. And that's not really fair to the movie. Now, if you've watched it and you can't stand it, well then, there you go. You've got a leg to stand on. You have an opinion based in fact. I encourage you to base your flavor likes and dislikes in fact as well. Really everything that you do. Oh my gosh, these look and smell amazing. I know some TV and food show hosts, they think everything tastes amazing, they think everything smells amazing, and it kind of gets a little bit old after a while. I promise I will not do that to you people. If something's terrible, I want to let you know. But these little guys, these are something special. These are definitely something special. If you make these and bring them somewhere, I'm told in the recipe book, it says that this is well suited for smorgasbords. So I think you should all start off by making a batch of these, finding a smorgasbord, and handing them out. If you do that, I'm pretty sure people will ask you for the recipe, ask you to bring them again. You'll be getting hit up. People are going to want to know where you came across this. And when they do, it would be much appreciated if you could say, well, I learned about this recipe, this original Swedish meatball recipe from actual Swedish immigrants, from the Legacy Larder channel on YouTube. Because my pal Andy has done a bit of research and dug up some old cookbooks and found some really swell, tasty old recipes. And you would probably enjoy trying them out for yourself. So there, you saved yourself the trouble of having to write down a recipe. You've given me a bit of a helping hand by directing someone to watch my channel. And you're also helping out your pal because now they know how to make these for their own smorgasbords, and you can enjoy their meatballs the next time you go to one of their smorgs instead of having to supply for everybody else. That's the last of them. Quite a large batch. You'll be glad that you had a large batch of these things because they're going to go. And also they freeze well. If you, for some reason, can't finish them off in a sitting or two and you want to, or you've got a smorgasbord coming up in your near future and you need to have some meatballs around for that smorgasbord, then you can make these ahead and freeze them. So that way, these pop-up smorgasbords that come around every once in a while and catch you by surprise, you will be prepared because you will have your meatballs pre-cooked, ready to go. All you have to do is warm them up. Everybody's going to think you slaved over the stove all night long preparing these meatballs, but you know the truth. You didn't. I mean, you did at some point, but not that night. And then you get to be everybody's hero because everybody's going to love these things. I wonder if this is what Sweden smells like. Just delicious meatballs. Like on Sundays, if you're walking through the quiet neighborhood, you can smell the smell of meatballs gently frying through the open windows. Maybe Sweden's not like that, but that's what it's like in my head. It's a delicious place, full of friendly and smiley people. I'm not worrying so much about the raw meat on my hand because these get baked for quite a long time afterward, about another half an hour, because they're still raw through the center. All we're doing is browning the outside. So if you're like, ew, he's touching that with meaty hands. Yeah, I am, but it's all going to get baked. So I'm not bringing toxins from the pan that these just came out of back onto these. Everything's fine. So it'll all turn out good. Don't worry about getting a little messy. It's your kitchen. Make a mess if you want to. Be sanitary and stuff, but be safe, people. Be safe. Okay, I'm going to flip these out into our pan, and we are good. We have gone through our batch, and I'll show you how many we've got, and then we'll bake them up. All right, here is our mountain of meatball. We've got a pretty good amount in here. So this is just a regular little baking electric device. So I'm going to now cook these for about a half an hour at 350. When that timer runs out, I'll check one, make sure they're done. You may have to go a little bit longer, you may have to go longer. Last time I think I had to cook them for about 40 or 45 minutes. So I might actually just start off a little bit longer, but the recipe says 30. I'm going to cook them for probably 40, just so you're aware of what I'm doing here. And then I'll show you the finished product. These are just about done. We're in the last stretch. Okay, it's been 40 minutes at 350 degrees. Let's take a look. Oh my gosh. That looks and smells absolutely out of this world. Let me put this to the side here. Select a lucky contestant. Go for a larger one if you can. Looks like a pretty good one. And let's check and see what's inside, shall we? Okay. Now, let's check out. Not quite cooked yet. Not quite yet. I'm gonna go a little bit longer. All right, take two. It's now been 50 minutes at 350 degrees. I have selected a second candidate. Now I'm just gonna cut open here. And that is a perfectly done meatball. I really hope you can see how juicy this thing is. I'm going to bring it in for an extreme close-up. It's just beautifully juicy. Succulent meatball. Alright, so, and I'll give it a taste test. I don't really need to because I already know that this thing tastes amazing. You can taste the nutmeg and the allspice. It's just gentle and warm and tasty, and it just makes you want to eat them and eat them. It's not It would be a crime to put these meatballs in a slow cooker full of barbecue sauce. That is not what these meatballs are for. These meatballs, you don't need ketchup, you don't need any salt and pepper, you don't really need anything. They are just perfect the way they are, just like all of you. These are amazing. So, highly recommended. Everybody should have a good meatball recipe anyway. So, give these a try. I'll put the recipe at the end. And if you like these, if you like the other recipes, the other videos that we're putting up, please like the video, subscribe, it helps me out. Tell your friends. I'm just getting started with this and trying to build a little bit of a following. So anybody who who likes older recipes, maybe things that aren't made anymore, a little bit harder to things that are a little bit harder to find, less mainstream, this is the place to be. I've got some really exciting things coming up with some very old cookbooks that I'll show you. I think you're gonna like it. So thanks again. This is Andy from Legacy Larder. Be good to each other, and I will see you soon.